Creatively, Toronto is one of the hottest markets in the world, and we have access to some incredible talent.
I don't even think we're selling a belief necessarily in a lot of cases. We're selling an understanding.
You have this ability to craft messages that can affect the lives of so many people around the country and world.
The world is not the same world that it was where everybody kept everything close to the vest 20 years ago.
Bird's Eye View.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bird's Eye View. I'm happy to have you today so that we can talk a little bit about the front end of everything that we do, the education process. I could speak for Skylarites in general, and we never stop learning. We never stop fine-tuning our skills, learning new skills, bringing new things to the table. The world around us changes, and so we have to change with it. One of the ways that Skylar has found a lot of success in sending 3 of our Skylarites so far, but hopefully more to come, all 3 who have been guests on Bird's Eye View, is to send them to a boot camp run by Miami Ad School here in Toronto, although I know they all wish that it was in Miami. But nonetheless, today we're going to be discussing all of that with a very knowledgeable woman in the field of business management and creative marketing. She's the co-founder and admissions director at Miami Ad School, Toronto, and I'd like to introduce Muneet Dhaliwal. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Kyle. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So Muneet, just to jump right into it, tell us a little bit about yourself, Miami Ad School, your role there.
Happy to. So as you mentioned, I am the co-founder of the Toronto chapter of Miami Ad School. Part of my role there includes leading the admissions team, the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities aspect. We are a registered private career college since 2016. Part of it includes funding for companies like Skylar sent team members for training. So any eligible grants and things like that to sort of support companies. The process really kicked off to bring this portfolio school to Canada in the end of 2014. It took about 1.5 years to get approved with the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities, and we've been growing ever since with the support of the industry.
And I think the industry has shown a lot of support, but I think that's also because the proof is in the pudding, right? So as you mentioned, Miami Ad School is a distinguished educational academy in various creative fields. As I mentioned, we've sent 3 Skylarites ourselves, Caitlin, Sarah, and Julia, all spoke a little bit about that on their episodes. They all went to Miami Ad School boot camps, and we've reaped the benefits of their enhanced education. But what would you say as a co-founder, what are the benefits of studying at Miami Ad School, Toronto specifically?
So to tell that story properly, I really need to rewind a little bit to when we brought the curriculum and the programming over from the state schools. One of the first things that we did, and we spent 1.5 years just meeting key people in the industry here, was making sure that our curriculum adapts to meet this market's needs. What we heard time and time again is that agencies were struggling to train junior and mid-level talent and support their transitions upward in the company, whereas for anyone in sort of senior and executive roles, they have a growth plan, a succession plan. So what we really wanted to do with the boot camps was, rather than bringing a program that helps people enter the industry in UX or strategy roles, we wanted to adapt it to help people move up. So one of our most common transitions with our strategy and social boot camps is going from an accounts manager role to strategy, or maybe you're trying to transition from a media role to strategy. On the UX end, it's usually going from a design or art direction role into a UX role. So that's been our focus in Toronto so far. Every single boot camp that we do includes about 15 to 20 industry professionals that are bringing their perspective to the table. And I think that's really the value that students and sort of junior mid-level professionals in the industry are getting from it. They have this ability to see the perspective of 20 different CSO level instructors in the industry. Everyone works in their own different way. And there's no wrong or right perspective, but they're able to dissect it all and develop their own by the end of it. On an individual student level, they're able to network. They're able to identify long-term career mentors, which is really hard to do when you're balancing a 9 to 5 that you're putting everything that you have into. We all know how hard it is to continue evolving your portfolio outside of work. So the boot camps really give students a structured opportunity to gain that competitive edge. But of course, it's called a boot camp for a reason. And balancing a 9 to 5 and training in the evening is something that really takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, and there's a lot of passion, I think, that goes into it. If you're not passionate, you'll never be successful. You did bring up a couple of interesting points I wanted to touch on. You mentioned a 9 to 5. Does that actually exist in this industry? Because as far as I can tell, it actually doesn't.
For the purposes of the boot camps, and every student that we've had over the last 4 years has been really good at this, and employers as well. For the purposes of a boot camp, yes, a 9 to 5 exists.
Yeah.
Before and after the boot camp, no.
Yeah, who knows, right? And then the other part of it was you mentioned, the industry professionals that come on bringing their perspective, and then the students are then required to dissect those perspectives and take those, and whether it's create a brief or work off of them. The interesting thing is that's actually what we do day to day, right? Whether it's in strategy, whether it's in social, whether it's in UX. I mean, ultimately, we're taking a variety of stakeholders who all have different perspectives and trying to make something that works for them, but really works for the audience more than anything else, right?
Exactly. And it's really replicating that agency environment that you are working in a school environment, and allowing mentorship and feedback to thrive. So you really are replicating an agency environment in a school model.
Yeah. And I think that we've even learned about other agencies and how they work through Miami Ad School, and the things that, the Skylar team members that have gone there have brought back learnings that have helped us to even grow ourselves as an agency. So in a way, thank you for that. Just shifting gears a little bit, Miami Ad School is offered in a variety of cities. I'm sure you find that there are differences between the advertising ecosystem in Canada as compared to, the rest of the world. Can you give us some of those specifics maybe, or some of those differences?
Definitely. So there's definitely easy answers that sort of come up when you ask this question. And one of those is the market size and the budget differences, which always affects the work and even the way that creatives and strategists work. I find that in Canada, there are more often hybrid creatives and hybrid strategists. They're really good at a lot of different things, and they are a master of one. So I think that our creative talent, our strategy talent, is a lot more nimble due to those two factors. They're doers and they're problem solvers and go-getters. And then the second one would be culturally, we're in an interesting country in terms of ethnicity, diversity, and even languages. So I do find that we lean on strategy a lot more than other counterparts in other industries. And finally, just looking at the student work over the last few years, our students are very entrepreneurial, and it's not something that I necessarily expected. I don't have a background in advertising when I joined the school. And so often I'm really surprised to see that their concepts are very innovative, whether they're product solutions or new service ideas, but they really do have that problem solving sense. And they're not always just looking for campaigns or experiential campaigns. It's really out of the box thinking.
Right. I've seen it even just from the young people that we bring on. Honestly, everybody brings a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, and I appreciate that because it helps the business. Is there anything specifically about the Miami Ad School in Toronto that makes it especially unique as compared to maybe some of the other Miami Ad Schools that exist?
Yeah, so I think one of the main reasons of our success here and our students' success here is the mentors. And so I think creatively, Toronto is one of the hottest markets in the world, and we have access to some incredible talent and incredible mentors. I think that's really what sets Toronto apart, is that culture of mentorship. Some of the mentors that have really stood out in the last few years, the very first one that comes to mind is our dean, Stephen Jurisic. He has played an incredibly active role in helping shape the students, the curriculum since day one. And that is a founder, that is a CCO of John Street. Similarly, people like Mike Dubrick from Rethink, Brent Nelson from Leo, Rosie Gentile from Cossette, or Jess Hiltz from FCB, they're busy people, but they really have that passion to mentor that next generation of talent. And I think that's what set our students apart. Because of that, our students have really excelled at what they do. They've really picked up that passion from their mentors. They've been awarded at ADCC, shortlisted for Future Lions, Clio's, D&AD, One Show, New York festivals, and very recently nominated for Webby Awards. So I think that's all part of the success and passion that's sort of being thrown into them. And the second part to that is really the placement of students. It's not something that you can expect when you kick off a project like a school. You can't expect where they're going to get hired or what their goals are going to be, but you can give them the best mentors that you possibly can. You can give them the opportunity and the resources to sort of reach for the stars in terms of their career. And so we've had students that have been placed at TBWA in Amsterdam, Publicis in New York, DDB in Berlin, GUT in Miami, recently took 2 of our graduates, and soon in LA, though I can't mention that one because they're still figuring out the visa. And then so many great companies in Toronto. And that's really not something you can expect, but you can give the students all the resources that they need to succeed. And they've really taken it all and made the most of it.
Yeah, it is quite impressive. And I think you forgot to add Skylar and Vaughn to that list. But I mean, it's okay. I understand. I'm sure we'll get there. We'll get there. We're slowly getting there. I also wanted to ask you, with all the awards that you mentioned that, you know, your students have earned and the accolades, I guess, that they have earned, our rates aren't going up, are they?
Not at all. That is something we are continuously trying to bring down. Funding is a big part of it. We're trying to get OSAP approved. Soon we'll have a license to accept international students as well. And of course, the Canada-Ontario Job Grant is an incredibly supportive system that has allowed so many agencies like Skylar to really invest in their team members. Skylar, Ogilvy, John Street, Ben Simon are just a few of the companies that have really taken advantage of the resources at their disposal.
Yeah, and thankfully they are. I don't know that we would have been able to, you know, once upon a time when we first started our relationship with Miami Ad School, but thankfully we did. And now, whether that funding is available to us or not, we want our people to benefit from the learnings that happen there. So on the networking side of things, that, you know, you alluded to the fact that whether it's placements for your students, I was well aware of the fact that when, you know, we first started sending Skylar rights to Miami Ad School, I would be opening up, you know, their own networking capabilities to other agencies, you know, perhaps to get scooped up. But also I felt like the world is not the same world that it was where everybody kept everything close to the vest 20 years ago. And if we didn't explore those opportunities ourselves, they were going to happen. So why not reap the benefits from those types of things and maybe encourage not only our employees, but our company as a whole to open our doors and let everybody in and give everybody some insight, which is really what, in the end, Bird's Eye View is all about, is to give people some insight into who we are, what we do, and who we work with. And I guess that's what you're seeing more and more of, is the companies who are saying, you know what, this is the right place to do, right place to be, whether, you know, running certain risks, I guess you could call it, it's almost worth it in the end, right?
Definitely. And you really answered it yourself, is the world is adapting, everyone is changing. And I really think that this industry is realizing that it needs to be supportive of each other. It's not a competition between who gets the clients and who is the best. It's really trying to move ahead as a whole, and really needs to rise above and try to do its best to get great talent in its doors and keep evolving that talent. I think there are certain things that we can definitely learn from the tech industry in that regard. And we have been adapting. So companies have been getting more and more open about sending people for training, regardless of whether or not they're going to stick with them for years to come or months to come.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And the parallels that are often drawn to Mad Men are not always the best parallels, you know, when people think about what we do or how we do it, right? So I hope, like you, we see continued evolution. I don't mind seeing some competition. It certainly makes the wins a little bit sweeter, but I agree that, you know, certainly working together collaboratively for the bigger purpose is something that we need to focus on a little bit more. I guess, speaking to our audience, not sure how many students we would have, or potential students, what are helpful things that students entering the world of marketing that you just spoke about that they should keep in mind?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that always comes to mind is that advertising is a lot more meaningful than selling things. It is really worth it. You have this ability to craft messages, whether you're creative or strategy. You have this ability to craft messages that can affect the lives of so many people around the country and world. Advertising can really push behavioral change. And I think in its best form, it can change perspectives. One of the things that really stuck out, we do a lot of free events, sort of community building events with a lot of people from the industry. And Angus Tucker, CCO of John Street, was with us about a year back now. And he said that when he was considering going back to school for either journalism or advertising, something that he sort of thought about was, he said, I think it's more powerful than journalism because your message is literally forced upon people daily, whether they want it or not. So I thought that was an interesting perspective. So I think that's one thing to take as you consider a career in advertising. And the second would be with any career that you decide to join, you really need to love what you do. Advertising is all about problem solving at the end. If you can problem solve, you can find a career in advertising on the creative or strategy ends. It's important to be as creative, as strategic as it is to have a business sense, and problem solving is the core of the business. So I think those are the 2-3 things I would say.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that with the social causes that have really taken prevalence in society, and I don't even think we're selling a belief necessarily in a lot of cases, we're selling an understanding. And I think what we're trying to do is try to set a level of understanding so that not everybody has to be left or right or blue or red or just, why can't we meet somewhere in the aisle? And there's a lot of that happening. And I think that brands and agencies, and particularly in Toronto, a lot of which I know you work closely with, are doing a great job of towing that line and staying apolitical or a-religious or just, again, let's speak to the humanitarian aspect of things as opposed to let's focus on humanity. Let's not focus on maybe the margins or the ROI, right?
Definitely. And the best part of being in an educational role with great minds that are just growing and evolving is seeing that their work is really, rather than including sort of product ideas or that sort of thing in their portfolio, our students have really been trying to tackle societal issues in a very unbiased way. So I think that if they are able to tackle those perspectives and sort of do some groundwork in that regard, it really sets them up to solve any sort of problem. But without us pushing any issues on the students, they include part of what they're passionate about in their portfolios, whether that's political or diversity or other.
Yeah, I think quite often the things that come through on CVs, portfolios, are the things that maybe weren't the biggest name projects or the biggest name campaigns, but actually the ones that they felt most passionate about because they're really able to sell the story as opposed to the brief in and of itself. Muneet, this has been a great conversation. I want to switch gears a little bit. Obviously, you've had to deal with quarantine. Julia from our office was doing a UX boot camp online. I'm sure that you guys have a ton of stories of things that have happened in and around quarantine or otherwise over the last few months. Do you have any lighthearted or funny stories that you could share with me?
Yes, from yesterday. It was our boot camp orientation yesterday. And it's funny, you can go through the same platforms and tech so many times without issue, and suddenly something will happen and you didn't change any settings. But it was orientation yesterday for the boot camps. It was online. So I was sharing a deck with 2 screens. And rather than sharing the screen that had the full blown deck, I didn't realize until halfway in when someone pointed it out, I was sharing the screen with the presenter notes. Presenter notes that I no longer use. They're sort of been there for a while now, but it was a bit embarrassing nonetheless. But they pointed it out in a really lighthearted way, and we had a good laugh about it for 5 minutes and moved forward.
I think everybody's gotten pretty understanding about those things. I mean, even today, you had to wait for me for 6 or 7 minutes.
We went to Google once for a presentation, and Google had technical difficulties for about 10 minutes. So after that, I've been a little bit easy on myself or anyone else. It happens to us all.
I agree. Muneet, listen, thank you again. Thank you for everything that you've done to help Skylar, our employees that we've sent to the boot camp. We look forward to working with you, obviously, in the future by sending more Skylarites. And hopefully, we look forward to even seeing, maybe different or new boot camps come into play where things that maybe wouldn't be open to some of our existing team. I know it's something that everybody's really interested in. So we look forward to seeing your growth. We look forward to working together, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Kyle. Really appreciate it. And thank you for really being the change with Skylar that you hope to see in the industry.
I hope to continue to do that. Thank you. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Highly recommend Miami Ad School as an opportunity, as a world-class opportunity to not just maybe elevate a career in advertising, but to start off a career. They have different options, different people, different stages of their careers, and please check it out. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bird's Eye View.